Hello. Sitting in my favorite bar, I was savoring a whiskey, trying to unwind after another long week. The dimly lit room buzzed with quiet conversations and the occasional clinking of glasses. It was a lively Friday evening, but I just wanted to relax in my usual corner spot, away from the crowd. And then I saw her. My wife, Emma, walked in, laughing, her hand casually resting on the shoulder of her assistant, Jack. My heart sank. Emma and I had been having problems, sure, but seeing her here, in my bar with him, was a punch to the gut I wasn't prepared for. They sat at a nearby table, not even noticing me. I watched as Jack leaned in, whispering something that made Emma throw her head back and laugh, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in months. It was clear they were more than just colleagues. Jack must have seen me out of the corner of his eye because he stood up, a smug smile on his face, and walked over to me. He patted me on the shoulder and said, "You lost your woman, buddy. She's mine now." I looked at him, my hands clenched into fists under the table. He staggered off to the restroom, leaving me seething with rage. The audacity of this prick. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. I couldn't just sit and let this happen. I got up and approached Emma. She looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to irritation. "Do you enjoy humiliating me in public?" she asked, her voice low but firm. I tried to stay calm. "I didn't mean to do this, but seeing you with him." She rolled her eyes, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, please, if you hadn't seen this. You've been out of this marriage for a long time." Before I could respond, Jack returned. He saw me standing and immediately assumed a defensive stance. "Hey, asshole, you still managing?" he said arrogantly. Without thinking, I punched him, breaking his arm. The bar went silent, all eyes on us. Jack screamed in pain, clutching his arm. Emma stood up, her face a mix of shock and fury. "What's wrong with you?" she yelled. I had no answer. I just knew I couldn't let them walk all over me anymore. As the bar's bouncer came over to deal with the scene, I realized this was only the beginning. Emma and Jack had crossed a line, and things were about to get a lot more complicated. After the incident at the bar, I knew I couldn't just go back and pretend everything was fine. I left before the bouncer could throw me out, leaving Emma to deal with the aftermath. My mind raced as I drove home, anger and betrayal gnawing at me. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait around. When I got home, I sat in the dark living room, waiting for Emma. Soon I heard her car pull up. She walked in, her face a storm of emotions, anger, frustration, and surprisingly, a hint of guilt. "Are you happy now?" she snapped, slamming the door behind her. "You made a scene, and now Jack is in the hospital." I stood up, trying to remain calm. "Happy? You were cheating on me with your assistant, and you expect me to just sit and take it?" She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "We've been over for a long time, Dan. You just didn't want to see it. Jack actually cares about me. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." "That's bullshit, Emma. And you know it. I work to support us, to give us a good life, and you repay me like this." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, don't play the martyr. You were never around. Always working late. Always finding excuses to avoid being with me. What did you expect?" I shook my head, feeling the weight of her words. "So your solution was to start sleeping with your assistant? That's the answer?" She hesitated, then her expression hardened. "Jack understands me. He listens. Something you forgot how to do." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I'm sure he listens real well while trying to get into your pants." Emma's face turned red with anger. "You're such a hypocrite, acting all righteous now. But where were you when I needed you emotionally? You've been cheating on me for years." Those words stung, but I wasn't going to back down. Maybe I was distant, but I never cheated on you, Emma. That's all on you. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say anything, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, then looked at me, her expression softening slightly. "It's Jack. I need to answer this." I grabbed the phone from her hand, feeling a surge of anger. "No, you don't. Not until we're done." She reached for the phone, but I held it out of reach. "Dan, give it back. Not until you tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had married. "Since last year. It started innocently, but things escalated. I didn't mean for this to happen, but I fell in love with him. I felt a mixture of sadness and rage. So what now? Are you leaving me for him? She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know. I need time to think. Time to think? I repeated, shaking my head in disbelief. You've had plenty of time, Emma. You made your choice. Before she could reply, I tossed her phone onto the couch and walked out of the house. I needed to clear my head, to figure out what to do next. The woman I thought I knew had betrayed me in the worst way, and now everything was falling apart. Driving aimlessly for what felt like hours, I couldn't help but wonder if there was any way to salvage the remnants of our broken marriage, or if this was the end. I drove aimlessly for what seemed like hours, anger and pain churning inside me like a storm. I ended up at my brother Mike's house. Mike and I had always been close, and I knew he would support me now when I needed it the most. When I arrived, Mike was sitting on the porch, a beer in his hand. He took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong. Dan, what happened? I sighed heavily, running a hand through my hair. It's Emma. She's been cheating on me with her assistant. I caught them tonight. Mike's face darkened with anger. That's messed up. Come on in. Let's talk. We went inside, and Mike handed me a beer. We sat on his couch, the TV murmuring in the background. Tell me everything, he said. And I did. I told him about the bar, Jack's smug comment, and the confrontation at home. Mike listened intently, his expression growing darker with every word. What are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to end it all right now, but another part, I don't know, Mike. We've been together so long. How do I just walk away from that? He shook his head. Dan, I get it, but she betrayed you. That's not something you can just ignore. And that guy Jack, he sounds like a real piece of work. I nodded, taking a long swig of beer. Yeah, he is. I broke his arm tonight. Didn't even think about it, just reacted. Mike raised an eyebrow. Good for you. He deserved it. But listen, you can't let this eat you alive. You need to figure out what you want. Do you really think there's anything left to save? I thought about it. About all the moments Emma and I had shared. The good times, the laughter, and the love. But those memories were now overshadowed by her betrayal. I don't know. I just feel so lost. Mike put a hand on my shoulder. Take some time. Clear your head. You can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure this out. That night I slept on Mike's couch, but sleep didn't come easily. I kept replaying the events in my head, seeing Emma laughing with Jack, hearing her trying to justify her actions. It was too much. The next morning I woke up to the smell of coffee. Mike was already up making breakfast. Morning, he said, handing me a mug. Thanks, I mumbled, taking a sip. I need to go back home today. I can't avoid this forever. Mike nodded. Just remember, whatever happens, I've got your back. With a heavy heart, I drove back home. The scene of last night's confrontation replayed in my mind as I pulled into the driveway. Emma's car was gone, and for a moment, I felt a strange sense of relief. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. I walked through the rooms, feeling the weight of Emma's absence. Her things were scattered around, a painful reminder of what we had lost. I found her phone on the couch where I had thrown it last night. It was buzzing with messages from Jack. Curiosity got the better of me, and I unlocked it. The messages were filled with worry and anger. Jack demanding to know where she was, blaming me for everything. My blood boiled again, but I knew reacting in anger wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I called Emma. She answered after a few rings, her voice tired and strained. Dan, I'm at my sister's. I need space to think. Think about what? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. About us. About everything. I know I messed up, but I need to figure out what I really want. I sighed, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. Emma, I don't know if there's anything left to think about. You betrayed me. You humiliated me. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I don't either, I said quietly. But we need to figure this out one way or another. We ended the call, and I sat in the silence, feeling the weight of the situation. I knew the road ahead would be tough, filled with difficult decisions and painful conversations. But one thing was clear: there was no going back. Emma's betrayal had changed everything, and the future was a big, uncertain question mark. The next few days were a blur of awkward conversations and painful realizations. Emma stayed at her sister's, and I tried to focus on work. Though my mind kept drifting back to our broken marriage, the nights were the worst, the silence of the house amplifying my loneliness. One evening, I was cleaning up the living room when I noticed Emma's laptop on the coffee table. I hesitated, then opened it. I needed answers. I needed to understand how everything had fallen apart. The laptop was still logged into her email and social media accounts. I knew it was wrong to snoop, but the need for answers outweighed my guilt. I started reading her messages, trying to piece together the timeline of her affair. What I found shocked me. It wasn't just Jack. Emma had been flirting with several men online, some messages dating back years. She had lied to me repeatedly, weaving a web of deceit that stretched far beyond what I had imagined. One conversation stood out. It was with a guy named Mark, whom I vaguely remembered as a friend from her college days. The messages were explicit, filled with details of their secret meetings and plans to be together. It was clear Emma had been living a double life for a long time. Just as I was about to close the laptop, I found a chain of emails between Emma and Jack. The subject line was, "Our plan." My heart raced as I opened it. "Jack, we need to make sure everything is in place before we can move forward. Dan mustn't suspect anything until it's too late." "Emma, I know. I'm working on getting him to sign the papers. He's so busy with work he won't even notice." "Jack, good. Once he's out of the picture, we can finally be together. Don't forget to transfer the money to the new account." "Emma, already done. Just a little more time, and this will all be behind us." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. This wasn't just an affair. Emma and Jack were planning something much bigger. They were planning to take everything from me, to leave me with nothing. Consumed with anger and betrayal, I knew I had to confront Emma with this new information. I grabbed my phone and called her, barely able to contain my rage. "Dan," she answered, her voice uncertain. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Now." Emma arrived at the house an hour later, her face pale and drawn. She walked in, looking around as if seeing our home for the first time. I motioned for her to sit on the couch, and I sat opposite her, the laptop open between us. "What is this, Dan?" she asked, her voice trembling. I turned the laptop so she could see the emails. "Do you want to explain this?" Her eyes widened as she read the messages. "Dan, it's not what you think. Don't lie to me, Emma. I know everything. The affair with Jack, the plans to take my money, all of it. How could you do this to me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted it to go this far." "But it did, Emma. It did. And now I don't know if there's any way back from this." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Jack convinced me this was the only way. He said we could start over, that you would never find out." I shook my head in disbelief. "So you were just going to destroy my life? Take everything we built together and leave me with nothing? For what? For him?" Emma looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I was scared, Dan. I felt trapped. I thought if I could just get out, everything would be okay." "Well, it's not okay, Emma. It's far from okay. You've destroyed everything." We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Emma looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "What now?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But we can't go on like this. We need to figure out what's next for both of us." As she left the house, I felt a strange sense of relief. The secrets were out, and there was no more pretending. But the future was still uncertain, and I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Revealing Emma and Jack's scheme left me stunned, but it also gave me a new sense of purpose. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Over the next few days, I gathered all the evidence I could find, from the emails to bank statements, building a case that would protect me from their deceit. I decided to hire a private investigator to dig into their activities. If there was more to uncover, I needed to know. Meanwhile, I also reached out to a divorce lawyer to discuss my options. I wasn't ready to make any final decisions, but I needed to be prepared. One evening, my phone rang. It was Mike. "Hey, how are you holding up?" he asked. "Better," I said, surprised at the truth in my words. "I'm taking steps to protect myself. I'm not going to let Emma and Jack get away with this." "Good to hear," Mike said. "Listen, I was thinking. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? Get out of that house for a bit." I hesitated, but he insisted. "Come on, you need to get out of that apartment. We miss you." Reluctantly, I agreed. When I arrived, I saw not just Mike and Sarah, but a few of our old friends. They had organized a small get-together, a sort of intervention to pull me out of my funk. At first, I felt out of place. But as the evening went on, the laughter and familiar faces started to lift my spirits. As the weeks went by, I began to feel more like myself. I reconnected with old hobbies, started running, and even joined a book club. It was at one of these book club meetings that I met Lisa. Lisa was different from anyone I had met before. She had a vibrant personality and a contagious laugh that made everyone around her smile. We started talking about the book we were reading, and I found myself genuinely enjoying her company. Over the next few meetings, Lisa and I grew closer. Talking to her was easy, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. We started meeting outside of the book club, having coffee or taking walks in the park. It was refreshing to be with someone who didn't know my past, who saw me just as Dan, not the guy whose wife cheated on him. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from Emma. My heart raced as I opened it, not knowing what to expect. "Dear Dan, I hope this letter finds you well. I've been doing a lot of thinking since our separation, and there are some things I need to say. First, I want to apologize again for everything I put you through. I know my actions were unforgivable, and I don't expect you to ever forgive me, but I want you to know that I am truly sorry. Second, I've been seeing a therapist, and it's helped me understand a lot about myself and my actions. I was lost, confused, and I let Jack manipulate me in ways I never thought possible. This doesn't excuse what I did, but I want you to know that I'm working on becoming a better person. Lastly, I want to thank you for the time we had together. Despite how it ended, we had some beautiful moments, and I will always cherish those memories. I hope you can find it in your heart to remember the good times too. I wish you nothing but happiness and success in your new life. You deserve it. Sincerely, Emma." As I read her words, I felt a mixture of emotions: anger, sadness, but also a strange sense of closure. Emma's letter was a reminder of the past, but it also marked a turning point. It was time to fully let go and embrace the future. I decided not to respond to the letter. There was nothing more to say. Instead, I focused on the life I was building. Lisa and I continued to grow closer, and eventually, we started dating. She was a breath of fresh air, and being with her felt natural and right. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the coast. We rented a small cottage overlooking the ocean and spent our days exploring the beach and our nights talking by the fire. It was during this trip that I realized just how much I had healed and how ready I was to move forward. As we walked along the shore one evening, Lisa took my hand and looked at me with her warm, understanding eyes. "You've been through a lot, Dan, but I'm glad you're here with me." I squeezed her hand, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I'm glad too, Lisa. More than you know." The waves gently lapped at the shore, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a deep sense of peace. My past with Emma had been a painful chapter, but it didn't define me. I was stronger now, more aware, and ready to embrace whatever came next. With Lisa by my side, I felt hopeful and alive. Life had thrown me challenges, but I had risen above them and found happiness again. The journey had been tough, but it was worth it. And as I stood there, holding Lisa's hand, I knew the best was yet to come. Months passed, and life continued to move forward. Lisa and I grew stronger as a couple, and I was happier than I had been in a long time. We had just celebrated our 6-month anniversary with a romantic dinner, and everything seemed to be falling into place. One Saturday afternoon, we decided to attend a local art festival. It was a beautiful day, and the streets were filled with people, vibrant booths, and the smell of delicious food. We wandered through the exhibits, enjoying the creativity and energy of the event. As we turned a corner, I froze. There, Standing in front of a photography booth was Emma. She was with a group of friends, laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a mix of emotions. Lisa noticed my reaction and looked in the same direction. "Is that her?" "Yeah," I said, my voice tense. "That's Emma." Emma saw us, and her expression changed, surprise and awkwardness replacing her previous joy. She excused herself from her friends and walked over to us, her face a mixture of unease and something else I couldn't identify. "Dan," she said, her voice uncertain. "It's good to see you." I nodded, not sure what to say. "Emma." Lisa, sensing the tension, smiled politely. "Hi, I'm Lisa." Emma returned the smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Nice to meet you, Lisa." An awkward silence followed before Emma spoke again. "I didn't expect to see you here. How have you been?" "Good," I replied. "Everything's good. And you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm better. Still working on myself, you know." "I'm glad to hear that," I said, wanting to end the conversation as quickly as possible. "Well, we should get going. Lots to see." Emma's eyes flickered with an emotion I couldn't place. Regret? Sadness? "Of course. It was good to see you, Dan, and nice to meet you, Lisa." We exchanged polite goodbyes, and Lisa and I continued walking. As we moved away from Emma, I felt a strange sense of relief. That chapter of my life was truly behind me, and I was ready to leave it there. Later that evening, as Lisa and I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset, she turned to me. "How do you feel after seeing Emma today?" I sighed, thinking about her question. It was unexpected, but I think it was good for me. Seeing her reminded me of how far I've come and how much better my life is now. Lisa nodded, her hand resting on mine. "You've come a long way, Dan. I'm proud of you." "Thank you," I said, feeling a wave of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. I realized that I had finally found peace and was ready to embrace the future with open arms. A few weeks later, I received a call from my lawyer. The trial against Jack was approaching, and they needed my testimony. It was a daunting prospect, but I knew it was necessary. Jack had to be held accountable for his actions, not just for what he did to me, but for all the other women he had manipulated. When the day of the trial arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. Lisa accompanied me for support, her presence a comforting anchor. As I took the stand and recounted my story, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Speaking the truth was cathartic, and seeing the smug expression on Jack's face fade was gratifying. The trial lasted several days, with numerous testimonies painting a clear picture of Jack's manipulative behavior. In the end, he was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and manipulation, and received a significant prison sentence. Justice was served, and I felt a sense of closure. With the trial behind us, life continued to move forward. Lisa and I grew even closer, and I began to think about the future in a way I hadn't before. One evening, as we sat by the fire in our favorite park, I took her hand. "Lisa," I began, my voice steady, "I know we haven't talked much about this, but I want you to know that I see a future with you. You've brought so much joy and healing into my life, and I can't imagine it without you." She smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "I feel the same way, Dan. You've been through a lot, and it's an honor to be part of your journey." We sat in silence, the crackling fire and the sounds of the night around us, creating the perfect backdrop for the moment. I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. A year later, on a beautiful fall day, Lisa and I stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was the same spot where I had first realized I was ready to move forward with her. As the waves crashed against the rocks below, I got down on one knee and took her hand. "Lisa, you've shown me what true love and partnership are. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Dan. 1,000 times yes." As we embraced, I felt a deep sense of happiness and peace. My journey had been long and painful, but it had led me to this moment. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with the woman I loved by my side. The months leading up to our wedding were a whirlwind of activity and emotions. Lisa and I planned every detail together, from the venue to the guest list, making sure our special day reflected the journey we had taken. Despite the excitement, there were moments of anxiety and doubt, remnants of the betrayal I had endured with Emma, but Lisa's unwavering support and love kept me grounded. One evening, as we were going through old photographs to use in our wedding slideshow, Lisa turned to me with a serious expression. "Dan, I know you've been through a lot, and I want to make sure we start our marriage with complete honesty and trust." I nodded, understanding where she was coming from. "I appreciate that, Lisa. I want the same. No secrets, no lies." She took my hand, her eyes searching mine. "Is there anything you're still holding on to from the past? Anything we need to address before we get married?" Her question caught me off guard, but I knew it was important. I took a deep breath and thought about the lingering feelings and unresolved issues. Maybe I still have some trust issues. It's not because of you, it's just, after what happened with Emma, it's hard to let go completely. Lisa squeezed my hand reassuringly. "I understand, Dan. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I'm here for you every step of the way. We'll get through this together." Her words were comforting, and I felt a sense of relief. I realized I didn't have to carry the burden of my past alone. With Lisa by my side, I could finally begin to heal. The day of our wedding arrived, a beautiful sunny day filled with promise and joy. We exchanged vows in front of our closest friends and family, pledging to love and support each other through all of life's challenges. As I looked into Lisa's eyes, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had brought light into my life after so much darkness, and I was ready to build a future with her. Our honeymoon was a magical escape, a chance to relax and enjoy each other's company without the distractions of everyday life. We went to a remote beach resort, spending our days exploring the island and our nights talking about our dreams and plans for the future. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our private bungalow, Lisa brought up something that had been on her mind. "Dan, I've been thinking about what you said before the wedding, about your trust issues. I want you to know that I'm committed to earning your trust every day." I smiled, feeling a surge of love for her. "You've already done that, Lisa, just by being yourself. But I appreciate it, and I promise to work on letting go of the past. We have a future to build, and I don't want anything to hold us back." We sealed our promise with a kiss, the setting sun casting a golden glow around us. It was a moment of pure happiness, and I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. As we settled into married life, we made a conscious effort to communicate openly and honestly. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them head on, knowing that our relationship was worth fighting for. One day, while unpacking the last of the boxes in our new home, I found an old photo album. It was filled with pictures from my life with Emma, a vivid reminder of the past. I felt a pang of sadness and nostalgia, but also a sense of closure. I showed it to Lisa, and we looked through the pages together, reflecting on how far we had come. "This is our past," I said, closing the album and setting it aside. "But our future is what matters now." Lisa smiled, leaning into me. "Here's to our future, filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities." Standing together, looking at the new horizon, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our journey was far from over, but with Lisa by my side, I was ready for anything. Life had taught me that resilience and love could overcome even the greatest obstacles. And as I looked into the eyes of the woman who had changed my life, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The past was behind us, and the future was bright. Together we could conquer anything. And as we embraced, I knew our story was just beginning. The best was yet to come. Years went by, and life continued its beautiful, unpredictable course. Lisa and I settled into a rhythm that was both comforting and exciting. Our children were growing up quickly, filling our days with laughter, challenges, and unforgettable moments. One summer, we decided to take a family trip to a lakeside cabin, a place where we could escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life and enjoy each other's company. The kids were thrilled, and their excitement was infectious. It felt like the perfect way to create new memories and strengthen the bonds we had built. The cabin was rustic but charming, nestled in a quiet corner of the forest with a stunning view of the lake. We spent our days swimming, hiking, and exploring, and our nights by the campfire, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. One evening, As the sun was setting and the sky was turning shades of pink and orange, Lisa and I sat on the porch watching the kids play by the water. She rested her head on my shoulder, letting out a contented sigh. "Remember when we first met?" she asked softly. "How uncertain everything seemed back then." I smiled, wrapping my arm around her. "I remember. It feels like a lifetime ago. We've come so far since then." Lisa looked at me, her eyes sparkling with love. "I'm so grateful for every moment we've shared, even the tough ones. They brought us to where we are now." I kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Me too, Lisa. I wouldn't change a thing." That night, as we sat by the campfire, our youngest Lily asked, "Daddy, how did you and Mommy meet?" Lisa and I exchanged smiles. We had told this story many times, but it never got old. I began recounting how we met at a book club, our first dates, and how our relationship blossomed. As I spoke, I looked at Lisa, remembering all the highs and lows we had faced together. It was a story of resilience, love, and the power of second chances. And the rest, I concluded, is history. We built a life together, filled with love and happiness. The kids listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. It was a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had to be thankful for. The next morning, as Lisa and I took a walk along the lake while the kids were still asleep, a morning mist hung over the water, creating a serene, almost magical atmosphere. As we walked, Lisa turned to me. "I've been thinking about something, Dan." "Oh? What is it?" I asked, intrigued. "I think it's time for another big step," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. "I've been offered a job in a different city. It's a big change, but it could be a great adventure for all of us. What do you think?" I stopped, considering her words. "A new city? That's a big decision." She nodded. "I know, but I think it could be good for us. A fresh start in a new place, new experiences for the kids. What do you think?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "I think it sounds like a wonderful opportunity. Let's do it." Lisa's face lit up with joy. "Really? You're okay with it?" I kissed her, feeling a surge of excitement. "Absolutely. As long as we're together, we can handle anything." The next few months were a whirlwind of preparations for our move. It was a bittersweet process, saying goodbye to our old home and the memories we had created there. But the prospect of a new adventure filled us with anticipation and excitement. When we finally settled into our new home, we felt a sense of renewal. The kids quickly adapted, making new friends and exploring their new surroundings. Lisa thrived in her new job, and I found new opportunities as well. One evening, as we were unpacking the last of the boxes, I found the old photo album again. This time, instead of pain, I felt closure. I showed it to Lisa, and we looked through the pages together, reflecting on how far we had come. "This is our past," I said, closing the album and setting it aside. "But our future is what matters now." Lisa smiled, leaning into me. "Here's to our future, filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities." Standing together, looking at the new horizon, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our journey was far from over, but with Lisa by my side, I was ready for anything. Life had taught me that resilience and love could overcome even the greatest obstacles. And as I looked into the eyes of the woman who had changed my life, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The past was behind us, and the future was bright. Together, we could conquer anything. And as we embraced, I knew our story was just beginning. The best was yet to come. Bye-bye.